The ultra-wealthy have a secret weapon that most people are taught to fear: debt. While you've been told all your life that debt is dangerous and should be avoided at all costs, the top 1% are using strategic debt to build massive wealth. Today I'm going to reveal how they do it, and how you can too. Think about this. If debt is so terrible, why do billionaires and major corporations constantly use it? The answer might shock you. They understand something most people don't. There's a massive difference between destructive debt and strategic debt. One keeps you poor, while the other can make you rich. Let me ask you a question. When you hear the word debt, what's your immediate reaction? For most people, it's negative stress, anxiety, something to avoid. That's because we've been conditioned by our parents, schools, and society to believe all debt is bad. But here's the truth. The ultra-wealthy have a completely different relationship with debt. They see it as a tool, perhaps the most powerful wealth-building tool available. While the middle class fears debt, the wealthy leverage it to multiply their wealth. Consider this example. Two people each have $100,000. The first person, following conventional wisdom, uses all $100,000 to buy a single property. The second person, using the wealthy mindset, uses that same $100,000 as down payments on 5 different $100,000 properties. 5 years later, when these properties have appreciated by 20%, who's better off? The first person's property is worth $120,000, a $20,000 gain. The second person's 5 properties are collectively worth $600,000, a $100,000 gain, or 5 times more. That's the power of strategic leverage. The middle-class perspective on debt comes from good intentions. After all, consumer debt like credit cards and auto loans can be financially devastating. But this blanket fear of all debt creates a major problem. It prevents you from using one of the most powerful wealth-building tools available. Here's what conventional wisdom gets wrong. First, it fails to distinguish between different types of debt. Not all debt is created equal. There's a world of difference between a credit card charging 24% interest for a vacation and a mortgage at 4% on a cash-flowing rental property. Second, it ignores the concept of opportunity cost. When you tie up all your capital to avoid debt, you miss countless opportunities to deploy that capital elsewhere for potentially higher returns. Third, it assumes you're financially unsophisticated. The advice to avoid all debt is like telling someone never to drive because cars can be dangerous. Instead, wouldn't it be better to learn how to drive safely? The ultra-wealthy don't follow this conventional wisdom. They understand that strategic debt, properly managed, is one of the fastest paths to building significant wealth. Let's clarify something important. I'm not suggesting you should rack up credit card debt or take loans for depreciating assets. That's bad debt, and it will keep you poor. Good debt has 3 key characteristics. First, it's used to acquire assets that generate income or appreciate in value. Examples include rental properties, business equipment that increases your productivity, or education that significantly boosts your earning potential. Second, good debt is self-liquidating, meaning the asset purchased with the debt generates enough cash flow to cover the debt payments. This is crucial. The debt should pay for itself. Third, good debt comes with favorable terms, reasonable interest rates, manageable payment schedules, and ideally some tax advantages. Let me give you a concrete example. If you buy a rental property with a 30-year mortgage at 5% interest, and that property generates enough rental income to cover the mortgage payment plus expenses while appreciating in value, that's good debt. The tenants are essentially paying off your loan while you build equity. Bad debt, on the other hand, is used to purchase depreciating assets or fund consumption. Credit card debt for vacations, car loans for vehicles that lose value the moment you drive them off the lot, or personal loans for everyday expenses. These forms of debt make you poorer, not richer. The ultra-wealthy use debt strategically in several key ways. First, they use debt to acquire income-producing assets. Rather than tying up all their capital in a single investment, they make smaller down payments across multiple investments, allowing them to control more assets with the same amount of capital. Second, they use debt for tax efficiency. In many cases, the interest on certain types of debt is tax-deductible, effectively reducing the real cost of borrowing. This is why you'll often see wealthy individuals maintain mortgages on their properties, even when they could pay them off. Third, they use debt to hedge against inflation. When you borrow money at a fixed rate, you're essentially shorting the dollar. If inflation rises, you'll be repaying the debt with cheaper dollars in the future. Fourth, they use debt to increase their return on equity. By using leverage, they can amplify their returns on successful investments. If you put 20% down on a property that appreciates by 5%, your actual return on your invested capital is 25%. That's 5 times the appreciation rate. Finally, they use other people's money, or OPM, to scale faster than they could using only their own resources. This allows them to build wealth at an accelerated pace. Now you might be thinking, this sounds risky. What if things go wrong? You're right to be concerned. Leverage amplifies both gains and losses, which is why proper risk management is essential. Here are the risk management strategies the wealthy use. First, they maintain adequate cash reserves. Before taking on strategic debt, ensure you have enough liquid assets to cover 6 to 12 months of all debt payments. This provides a safety buffer if income temporarily decreases. Second, they use appropriate debt-to-income ratios. As a general rule, your total debt payments shouldn't exceed 40% of your income. This ensures you have enough cash flow to handle unexpected expenses. Third, they diversify their debt sources. Don't rely on a single lender or type of financing. Having multiple options gives you flexibility if one source becomes unavailable or changes its terms. Fourth, they use insurance strategically. Property insurance, liability insurance, and in some cases, life insurance can protect your leveraged investments from catastrophic risks. Fifth, they structure their holdings to limit liability. Using entities like LLCs can help protect your personal assets if an investment fails. Remember, the goal isn't to maximize debt, it's to optimize it. Take on only as much debt as you can responsibly manage given your financial situation and risk tolerance. Now let's talk about how you can actually implement these strategies in your own life, even if you're starting from a middle-class position. First, audit your current debt. Categorize each debt as either good or bad based on the criteria we discussed. Create a plan to eliminate bad debt while potentially maintaining or even strategically increasing good debt. Second, identify potential leverage opportunities. Look for assets that generate consistent cash flow, have a history of appreciation, can be acquired with favorable financing terms, and are in markets or industries you understand. Third, start small and scale gradually. You don't need to make million-dollar moves right away. Begin with smaller investments to build your experience and confidence with leverage. Fourth, build your financial education. Before using leverage extensively, make sure you thoroughly understand the assets you're acquiring. Never invest in something you don't understand, especially with borrowed money. Fifth, build relationships with potential lenders. Traditional banks, credit unions, private lenders, and even seller financing can all be valuable sources of strategic debt. Having these relationships in place before you need them is crucial. If you're new to using strategic debt, here's a step-by-step approach to get started. Step 1. Clean up your financial foundation. Eliminate high-interest consumer debt, build an emergency fund, and improve your credit score. A strong credit score will give you access to better financing terms. Step 2. Educate yourself about specific asset classes. Whether it's real estate, business equipment, or other income-producing assets, become knowledgeable about the specific type of investment you're considering. Step 3. Start with a small, low-risk investment. For example, you might purchase a single-family rental property in a stable market with a conventional mortgage. Make sure the numbers work. The rental income should cover all expenses including the mortgage, taxes, insurance, maintenance, and still provide some cash flow. Step 4 is to build a team of advisors. This might include, a knowledgeable accountant, an experienced attorney, and mentors who have successfully used leverage to build wealth. Step 5 is to monitor and adjust your strategy. You should regularly review the performance of your leveraged investments. Are they meeting your expectations? Are there opportunities to refinance for better terms or to pull out equity for additional investments? And Step 6, scale gradually as you gain experience and confidence. As you become more comfortable with leverage and build a track record of successful investments, you can begin to scale your approach. Remember, the goal isn't to take on as much debt as possible. It's to use debt strategically to accelerate your wealth building while managing risk appropriately. To successfully implement these strategies, you may need to fundamentally change how you think about debt. This isn't easy. We've all been conditioned to fear debt from an early age. Start by recognizing that debt itself is neither good nor bad. It's simply a tool. Like any tool, its value depends on how you use it. A hammer can be used to build a house or break a window. The hammer itself isn't inherently constructive or destructive. It's the application that matters. Next, focus on the purpose of the debt, rather than the debt itself. Are you borrowing to fund consumption or to acquire assets? Are you using debt to make yourself poorer or richer in the long run? Also, understand that your relationship with debt will evolve as your financial situation changes. As you build wealth and experience, your capacity to use leverage effectively will increase. What might be too risky for you now could be perfectly reasonable a few years from now. Finally, remember that strategic debt is just one tool in your wealth-building toolkit. It should be used in conjunction with other strategies like increasing your income, controlling expenses, and making smart investment decisions. The ultra-wealthy don't fear debt, they respect it. They understand its power and use it intentionally to accelerate their wealth building. You can do the same by adopting their mindset and applying these strategies at a scale that makes sense for your situation. If you found this perspective valuable, hit that subscribe button to join our community of people learning the wealth strategies that the 1% don't want you to know. And remember, in the world of wealth building, what you've been taught might be holding you back. Sometimes the conventional wisdom is conventional for a reason. It keeps the wealth in the hands of those who already have it.